The courier left the box on my doorstep in Lodo just after sunset, a neat square wrapped in gold foil. I knew the handwriting on the card before I even flipped it open. Happy birthday. Love, Dad, Marla, and Ivy. I stood there longer than I should have, trying to understand why the three of them would spend nearly $500 on handcrafted truffles for a daughter they barely tolerated. My chest tightened, the old ache rising again. I told myself not to give it oxygen. By the time I reached Aurora, the sky had already dipped into indigo. I pushed open the front door without knocking. Reed and the kids were sprawled on the living room floor, surrounded by crayons and half-built Lego towers. Reed's face lit up. "Kaya, you came!" "I brought something for you three," I said, setting the velvet box on the carpet. Zane snatched it first, shaking it like it held treasure. Lyra clapped until I lifted the lid, revealing rows of glossy chocolate domes. Their excitement was instant and loud. They tore wrappers, shoved pieces into their mouths, and argued over flavors. Reed held one between his fingers. "Are you sure? These look expensive." "They were not meant for me," I said, forcing a light tone. "Have at it." He smiled and bit into one. I stepped back, watching their joy fill the room, something that had never existed when I was their age. I did not stay long. I kissed Reed's hair, waved to the little ones, and slipped out. No one asked why I had come alone on my birthday, and I did not offer anything. Driving back toward Denver, I glanced at the light stretching behind me. If you have ever felt that a family gift carried a warning instead of love, stick with this story. It goes darker than anyone expects. I had just finished brushing my teeth when my phone buzzed. Dad's name glowed on the screen. "Kaya," he said, breath ragged. "Did you eat any of the truffles?" "No," I answered, wiping toothpaste from my mouth. "I told you earlier. I dropped them off. Reed and the kids ate most of them." The line went silent, not a pause, an absence. Then he hung up. I stared at the phone, confused. It buzzed again immediately. Marla. "Kaya," she choked out. "You need to tell me exactly how many Reed ate." Her voice cracked and spiraled upward until she sounded almost feral. "He had a few," I said. "Why are you—" She screamed. The call cut. The phone rang a third time. Ivy. Her sobs hit me before her words did. "Please," she gasped. "Say you ate at least one. Say you did." "Ivy, none," I snapped. "I left them there. What is going on?" She wailed my name and the call collapsed into static. I felt cold, but I still didn't understand. I was reaching for a glass of water when the phone rang again, from a number I didn't know. "Ms. Flint," a calm voice said. "This is Children's Hospital Colorado. We have Reed, Zane, and Lyra in emergency care. All three presented with seizures and severe cardiac irregularities." The room tilted. "What caused it?" I whispered. "We are running diagnostics now," the doctor said. "Ms. Flint, they arrived just in time." I was already grabbing my keys. When I ran through the hospital doors minutes later, a nurse guided me toward a curtained bay. The doctor met me there, eyes steady. "Ms. Flint," he said quietly. "All symptoms point to ingestion of a potent cardiotoxic substance. If an adult had eaten the same amount the children did—" He stopped. He did not need to finish. Reed was still half asleep when I slipped into his room. Machines hummed softly around him, each beep a reminder of how close I had come to losing him. His eyelashes fluttered, and then his eyes opened, slow, unfocused, frightened. "Kaya?" His voice was thin, rasped, raw. Are Zane and Lyra okay?" "They are stable," I said, taking his hand. "So are you. You scared me." He swallowed hard, eyes darting away. "I did something stupid." "Reed, no, none of this is your fault." He shook his head, tears gathering. "Marla told me not to touch the chocolates. She said they were only for you." The words sank in, dull and heavy. "For me?" I asked softly. She wouldn't even let Ivy's kids near it. She took me into the hallway and said, "Whatever you do, do not eat this. It is meant for Kaya." He sucked in a shaky breath. I thought she was being weird about calories or something. I did not think—" His chest hitched. "I did not think it was dangerous." I tightened my grip around his fingers. "You did nothing wrong." "I gave them to the kids because they were begging," he whispered. "I thought it was just candy." His guilt cut deeper than anything I had felt so far. I leaned close, lowering my voice until only he could hear it. "Marla never wanted you hurt. She wanted me hurt." He froze. I felt him realize the meaning in stages: shock, confusion, and then something sharper. "You mean, she wanted you to—" "Reed," I said quickly, "you need to rest. Let the doctors handle the medical part." He didn't push. He simply nodded, though the nod was full of fear he was trying to swallow. When he drifted back to sleep, I slipped out, gripping the railing to steady myself. Every call, every scream, every panicked question about whether I had eaten one piece. They were terrified I was still alive. Back at my apartment, I dumped the velvet gift bag onto the counter. The box was gone, devoured, but the gold tissue paper was crumpled at the bottom. I lifted it to my nose. Beneath the sugary cocoa scent was something sharp, metallic, wrong. I pulled out the evidence bags I kept from work and sealed everything inside. Then I called the only person who would understand what I was holding. Dr. Wynne Archer answered on the second ring. "Kaya? It is late. I need an initial toxicology screen within 6 hours, I said. Full panel in 36. I will pay whatever it costs." His tone shifted instantly. "Bring it to the lab in German Village. I will meet you at the door." "I am on my way." I ended the call and stared at the sealed bag in my hand. They had not expected me to open it. They had expected me to die with it. The Crossflint house was dim when I walked in, but I didn't bother knocking. Hank sat hunched on the couch, elbows on his knees. Marla paced near the kitchen doorway, twisting her phone like she meant to snap it. Ivy stood by the fireplace, mascara smeared down her face. No one spoke when they saw me. I pulled out my phone, tapped the red button, and held it loosely at my side. "Reed is awake," I said. "He told me everything." Marla's head jerked up. "Everything?" Her voice wavered, but the bitterness beneath it was sharp. "He told me you warned him not to touch the chocolates, that they were only for me." Ivy flinched, a tiny sound escaping her throat. Hank's gaze dropped to the floor. Marla tried for concern. "Kaya, we were terrified. The children—" "Stop!" I cut in. "Why were they only for me, Marla?" Her mask slipped in an instant. "Because you were supposed to be the one who ate them," she snapped. "You sit on your mother's $2,100,000 while the rest of us drown. One heart episode and the money comes back to the family where it belongs." Ivy let out a strangled sob. "We just wanted Zane and Lyra to have a future. Reed too. You never helped." Hank shifted, but his silence said everything. I let their words hang between us, every syllable sealing itself onto the recording. When they finally stopped talking, I ended the audio and slid the phone into my pocket. "You just confessed to attempted murder of an adult and 3 minors," I said softly. "This conversation is over." I stepped outside and closed the door behind me. I drove through the night without music, without thought, just the steady drum of rage tightening in my ribs. By sunrise, I walked into an upscale salon in Cherry Creek, the kind with glass walls and hushed voices. A stylist looked up, startled. "I need a cut," I said. "Sharp, clean. Make me look like someone who never loses." She didn't ask questions. Scissors flashed, hair fell, and when I met my reflection again, the woman staring back looked like she had already chosen war. I went straight to Pierce Dalton's office downtown. He was still hanging his coat when I stepped inside. "Kaya," he said, "you look—" "Focused," I answered, pulling out my phone. "Listen." I played the recording. Marla's venom filled the room, followed by Ivy's desperate agreement and Hank's complicit silence. Pierce didn't interrupt. He didn't breathe. When it ended, he exhaled once, slow. "This is enough for emergency protective orders, search warrants, and a preliminary charge, but I want toxicology too." I set the evidence bag on his desk. Dr. Wynne Archer is running the panel. Initial results soon. Pierce nodded, already dialing. We will file for temporary custody of Reed within the hour. I will have officers at the Cross Flint house by noon. And Kaya? What? You need to be prepared. They will weaponize anything they can. They already tried, I said. With chocolate. His jaw tightened. Then we matched their intention with the law. I stood to leave, but Pierce stopped me with one more sentence. Quiet, measured. You did the right thing coming here. Now let me make sure none of them ever get close to your brother again. For the first time since the hospital, I felt something unclench inside my chest. Not relief, resolve. Reed barely spoke during his first 2 days in my apartment. He curled into the corner of my gray couch with his hoodie pulled over his head, answering questions with nods instead of words. I kept my voice low, letting him breathe, letting him feel safe. On the third afternoon, he wandered into the kitchen while I was reheating soup. Do you need anything? I asked. He twisted the drawstring of his hoodie until it snapped. Marla used to say things about you. Things I did not understand. I set the spoon down. What kind of things? That once you were out of the picture, the family would finally have enough money. That your mother's savings were supposed to be for all of us. Ivy would laugh and say the tuition was already picked out. His voice cracked. Dad never told them to stop. I felt the anger return, cold and sharp. None of that was fair to you. He shook his head. I thought it was just talk. I did not know they meant it. My phone buzzed on the counter. Pierce's name flashed. I answered on speaker. Kaya, he said. Full toxicology is back. Synthetic aconitine, high purity. This was intentional. Reed sat down slowly, listening. And the financial review? I asked. Pierce sighed. Marla holds over $540,000 in gambling debt. Ivy co-signed one of the loans. The timing lines up with the chocolate purchase. Reed's shoulders curled inward. They were desperate. No, I said gently. They were dangerous. A knock hit the door. Loud, frantic. Ivy's voice cracked from the hallway. Kaya, open this door right now. Reed flinched so violently I stepped in front of him. I opened the door only a few inches. Ivy's face was blotched with tears. Give me my brother. You stole him. I pulled out my phone and tapped the recording. Marla's voice spilled into the hallway. Cold, deliberate, murderous. Ivy froze, breath hitching. I thought only you would eat it, she whispered. You helped them, I said. Now step back. I closed the door before she answered. Reed leaned into me slowly, like he was learning trust all over again. 14 months later, Reed and I sat in the second row of the courtroom, close enough to hear every breath the defendants took. Marla stared straight ahead, jaw clenched. Hank looked smaller than I remembered. Ivy kept her hands twisted in her lap, refusing to meet my eyes. Pierce Dalton rose first, his voice steady. The state calls Dr. Wynne Archer. Wynne stepped up, greeted the jury, and began. The children exhibited symptoms consistent with ingestion of synthetic aconitine. High purity, fast acting, lethal in the amount consumed. Marla shifted in her seat. Ivy blinked hard. Pierce lifted an evidence bag. And the residue found on the gold tissue paper recovered from Ms. Flint's apartment? Identical compound, Wynne confirmed. There is no possibility of accidental contamination. The defense attorneys exchanged panicked glances. Then, Pierce pressed the button that played my recording. Marla's voice filled the courtroom, cold and unfiltered. Once her heart stopped, the money would finally come back to the family. Ivy's broken agreement followed. Hank's silence was louder than words. A juror covered her mouth. Another wrote something down with shaking hands. When Reed took the stand, he didn't look at them. He looked at me as he was sworn in. Reed, Pierce said gently, why are you testifying today? He gripped the railing. Because Kaya is the only person who ever protected me. She chose me when they didn't. Marla hissed something under her breath. Ivy started to cry. The verdict arrived 4 hours later. Guilty on all counts. Marla received 14 years. Hank received 8. Ivy received 10. The judge turned to Reed. Do you understand permanent guardianship? Reed stood without hesitation. Yes, it means I get to stay with Kaya. So ordered, the judge said. Reed sat beside me again, breathing out slowly. Not relief, release. 10 years passed before I realized we had stopped looking over our shoulders. Reed was 22 now, tall and steady, walking across the University of Colorado Boulder stage with a diploma in his hand. When he spotted me in the crowd, he lifted it like a promise he intended to keep. After the ceremony, we stood on a quiet overlook above Denver. The wind pushed strands of his hair across his forehead, just like when he was 12 and terrified. He nudged me gently. Do you ever regret it? I understood what he meant. I regret waiting as long as I did, I said. But I do not regret choosing a life where both of us survive. He let out a slow breath. I used to think family was something you were stuck with. It is not, I said. It is something you build. He looked at me then, really looked. You gave me a home, Kaya, not just a place, a life. I felt the words settle between us, warm and final. And you gave me one too. We started walking back toward the parking lot, the city lights flickering below. If there are people out there living through families like ours, Reed said quietly, they should know they can get out. Then let them hear this story, I answered. Maybe it will help them hold on until they can break free. So if you are listening, stay with us. There is more to tell, and you are not alone.